kind of quick one, I guess.
All right, Andy, with the
This
question.
from Cesar. Why soldiers resurrected by Anduin in Battle for Lordaeron came back to life without being undead, and Calia resurrected as well with the light is some kind of an undead lady.
All right, so first and foremost, it's been... Oh my god, it's... Okay, so this is very weird. Okay, so the Anduin resurrection at Lordaeron, the question for anyone that didn't hear, Mr. Drumeria says you're very low, Andy. Okay, so the question for anyone that didn't hear, why is it that when Anduin resurrected the people at Lordaeron, they came back as just alive and normal human beings, but when Calia got resurrected also by the light, she came back as undead? Okay, so first and foremost, lore-wise and established lore, Anduin didn't resurrect anyone. Anduin simply healed the soldiers. So those weren't fallen soldiers. Those were soldiers that purely couldn't keep fighting because they were wounded, and Anduin healed them. But even if, let's say we believe that he actually raised those soldiers, it speaks to the light and what the light wants. So Calia Menethal's resurrection to undead rather than just being brought back to life, because we do know that that is possible. Just very quickly, resurrection. Okay, so again, gonna have to annoy a lot of people, but resurrection in World of Warcraft is actually incredibly difficult. It's something that only the most gifted of priests and druids, I believe, can do. Unless you have necromancy, but necromancy doesn't actually bring someone back to life. It just brings someone's soul back to a dead body and creates an undead. So you're not actually restoring life. You're basically subverting the rules of the cosmos in a way. So resurrection is like the portal thing that we spoke about before. Teleporting in World of Warcraft is also an incredibly difficult thing. It takes a hell of a lot out of you, as is confirmed in Shadows Rising, the novel, where after Thalyssra, after Thalyssra teleported the soldiers of the Horde, she was completely spent, and she couldn't do it anymore. Like, it took so much out of her. So teleportation is an incredibly difficult spell. Resurrection is even harder, because with Resurrection, you are effectively reaching across the other side, bringing that soul back, and most of the time, it is not successful. So you need an incredibly powerful priest in order to do so. With the light, on the other hand, the Calia Menethil one, there was a very specific reason. We don't know yet what that reason is, but the light clearly wants the Forsaken. Either it wants a foothold within the Forsaken, or it wants the whole of the Forsaken. But Calia was a very sort of quote-unquote political move, if you will. Even if the light could bring back Calia Menethil as a living being, they still would have chosen to bring her back as Forsaken because they want her. Now, in my opinion, the light wants Calia Menethil because they're preparing us for their ultimate invasion. They're trying to get as many of the tribes of Azeroth on their side so that when they finally invade Azeroth, most of the tribes of Azeroth will simply fall to their knees and convert to the light. The wind is getting fucking crazier, and will convert to the light. Will that work? I don't know, because there's almost guaranteed to be some level of pushback to that. What that pushback and where that pushback will come from, I don't quite know. But that's my theory at the moment. The light is preparing us. And I think that the next expansion, as we discussed earlier in the stream, I do believe that the next expansion for World of Warcraft is almost definitely going to be Light v Void. I'm almost convinced of that. I would be surprised if it isn't, just because all of the signs are there that Light versus Void is coming to a head. The Void Lords are almost definitely not just going to give up, especially now that we've killed their presence on Azeroth. I think they're going to come even harder than they've ever come before. Like they're gonna bring their absolute best, and we may actually finally fucking meet an actual Void Lord at some point. Whatever they look like, they might actually just void the fuck out. So yeah, that is something that I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, the Calia Menethil resurrection was political. Whatever the light is planning, Calia Menethil is central to these plans, so much so that if my theory is correct, they sacrificed Anduin in order to do it. Remember what the Void told us? The Void told us that the light struck a bargain with the enemy of all. Now, the only bargain that we know of that the light could possibly have struck is the bringing back of Calia Menethil. Considering when Calia died, Calia's soul would have been in the Shadowlands. And more specifically, Calia's soul would have been... her soul would have been... her soul would have already been with Zuval. Right? Because Argus died at the end of Legion. Argus took down the Arbiter. Calia Menethil died after the events of Legion, but before the events of Battle for Azeroth. So Calia Menethil would have been with Zuval. The Void telling us that the light struck a bargain with the enemy of all almost certainly suggests that the light struck a bargain with Zuval in order to bring Calia Menethil back to life, or at least to undeath. So this is why I believe when Anduin used the light inside the Maw, that's why Zuval went interesting, because that was his deal. His deal was, you send me a champion of the light, and I will give you this champion back. And they did. And that's why Zuval was happy to do the exchange. He got his champion of the light because Zuval seems to be hard on for champions of the light. Every single one of the Lich Kings he's chosen have been of the light. And before people go, what about Ner'zhul? Zuval never chose Ner'zhul. Sargeras chose Ner'zhul. As soon as Zuval could choose, he chose Arthas. And Arthas was a paladin. Right after Arthas, Bolvar, who was prepared for the role, also a paladin, and then ultimately Anduin, not a paladin, but a priest, close enough, also a champion of the light. Zuval chooses champions of the light every single time. There must be a reason for that. I don't know exactly what that reason is, other than the light sort of works the same way when it comes to domination. The light dominates already. So it might just be that Zuval prefers beings of the light because they're easier to manipulate. They're easier to control. Because they already believe in the light. They already believe in this fundamental truth. And all you need to do is subjugate that belief and turn it into something else, and they will absolutely follow you. No questions asked, because they're already used to that. So there is a chance there. But the light is definitely up to something, and that's where Calia Menethil comes from. I hope that clears things up at least a little bit. Yeah.